Well, hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. Why don't we go ahead and get started? My name is Armando Ortega and I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Replicon and your host and moderator for today. Replicon is very excited to sponsor today's webinar. Today we're featuring Paul Hammerman of Forrester Research, and our webinar is entitled Mission Impossible, Time and Attendance in Real Time. In this webinar, Paul will be explaining how the shifting landscape of mobile and other real-time technologies are empowering organizations to manage time and attendance and other processes in the moment for increased productivity. And then in the second part, Jose Gaona, Vice President of Product Strategy for Replicon, will build on Paul's presentation by showing a few concrete examples of how mobile technology can transform how time and attendance is managed, not only to empower frontline managers, but also to make life easier for payroll managers. However, before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items. First, I'd like to let you know how you can participate in today's webinar. You'll be kept on mute during the presentation, but you can submit your questions at any time during the presentation just by using the question text box that's located at the right-hand side of your screen. And questions will be addressed at the end of the webinar, so please feel free to submit your questions as we go if something comes up and is triggered in your mind. Now, let me go ahead and introduce our first speaker, so that we can get started with the program. I am very pleased to introduce today Paul Hammerman. Paul Hammerman is Vice President and Principal Analyst for Forrester Research. Paul focuses on human resources management and financial applications, as well as trends and directions in the overall market for enterprise applications. His work includes analyzing market trends and technology adoption, business process best practices, software market sizing and segmentation, application deployment models like SaaS, and next-generation technologies. Paul, we're very pleased to have you here. Please, take it away.
Thanks, Armando, and thanks to Replicon for having me join the webinar, and hello to our audience. As an industry analyst for the past 14 years, I've been studying how we use business applications, and I'd like to share with you today some research and insights about trends that show some dramatic shifts in how we use technology in our work and daily lives. So I have three sections for you in this presentation. First, I'll discuss a new paradigm for systems of engagement, which we call the mobile mind shift. Second, I'm going to discuss how the software consumption model is making a major shift from buying on-premise systems to subscription-based systems based on consumption in the cloud, which we refer to as software as a service, or SaaS. Finally, I'm going to end with some thoughts about how these technology trends impact a specific software category, namely time and attendance software, which is rapidly embracing mobile and SaaS. So with the backdrop of these themes around mobile and SaaS, we can focus on some of the specific technology drivers that are causing what we call digital disruption. And in my focus on the business applications market, the key drivers that I've observed and my colleagues have observed really center around four key technologies that are creating this digital disruption, which are cloud, mobile, social, and big data. So we'll talk mostly today about cloud and mobile, but the other trends are important as well. Cloud in general, and more specifically software as a service, is changing the way that businesses consume technology. The software of the past few decades has proven to be very difficult to install, costly to update, and also difficult to change. In software as a service, we have a more sustainable delivery model and a consumption model that is well adopted and accelerating very, very rapidly. Social and mobile technologies represent a major shift for businesses from historically batch processes and the continuous flow of information. And this, of course, is heavily rooted in the consumer world and in our everyday lives. And now these technologies are transforming how businesses operate. And finally, big data is a buzzword that we use to refer to the advanced technologies that allow us to analyze massive amounts of information instantaneously. This also moves us from the analog world of batch processes to the digital world of real-time business. Now, in today's digital world, business applications need to be much more engaging than the legacy systems or systems of record that were designed to capture transactional data in a centralized or batch process. When we refer to systems of engagement, we're talking about the systems that are designed for people and are based on contemporary technologies that we use every day, including smartphones and tablets, and also social streams of communication. These systems are delivered typically in a cloud environment and serve employees, customers, and business partners in a way that provides a much more dynamic experience that leverages data coming from the underlying business systems as well as from the world around us. Now, in the context of time and attendance, as really the key subject of this webinar, we need to focus on engaging our workforce in a way that mirrors how we engage our customers. The goals are similar in that we want both customers and employees to be satisfied, loyal, and advocates of our product and brand. Companies serving consumers in particular have invested a great deal in technology for customer-facing technologies to win, serve, and retain their customers. The workforce systems that we use, including time and attendance, should use similar technologies to create an experience that is engaging for the employee and also helps the employee focus more on the work that they do and their customers and business outcomes. Now, this graphic comes from a very recent report that I authored about creating business value by focusing on employee engagement. So let's talk about employee engagement a little bit more, because I think it's a key factor that we need to address in time and attendance systems and HR systems in general. So in our research, we've defined an engaged employee as one which, one, plans to stay with their employer for the foreseeable future, two, are advocates of their company's products and services, and three, would also recommend their company to family and friends as a place to work. So in a survey that we conducted of over 9,000 workers, we found that only 1/3 of the employees exhibited these three characteristics. So what we believe is happening is that there's a serious deficit of engagement, employee engagement, and this is also supported by research by the Gallup organization and other researchers. So let's try to understand why this is so. So employee attitudes we found were much more positive for engaged workers when they get support from their boss in terms of finding creative solutions to problems, and also when they get recognized for their efforts and accomplishments, and also when they're challenged by the work that they do. So you can see here at the top of this chart that there's a big difference in terms of the performance of engaged employees versus those that are not engaged. We also find that engaged employees can see the benefits of their efforts on customer and client satisfaction, and they're often measured directly on what they achieve. And so tying this back to systems of engagement, including workforce applications like time and attendance, we need to provide a more engaging digital experience in these applications and also provide positive feedback through these systems so that the employee can realize that their efforts are creating business value. Now, three of my Forrester colleagues recently authored a book called The Mobile Mind Shift, which discusses the phenomenon of how we're adopting mobile in our lives and also how we are recalibrating our expectations for business processes and systems. Humans now continually interact with handheld devices that contain applications supporting corporate business processes. Smartphone users in particular have rising expectations that websites they access will provide a friendly user experience, and also they expect that there are apps available to accomplish almost any task that you can think of. And so the digital experiences are changing dynamically, and also these experiences change as you change your location and also other factors in your environment. So the number of apps right now in the Apple and Android app stores is just exploding, and we expect that by 2017 there'll be more than 10 million apps in the Apple App Store alone. Now, a couple more points to illustrate the scale of this mobile mind shift. And we expect to see over a 5-year span from 2012 to 2017 a doubling of the number of smartphones in use, getting up to 2.3 billion people, almost everyone on the planet, and also a quadrupling of the number of tablets during the same period. Now, I happen to have 4 tablets myself, so probably people like me are distorting these numbers a little bit. But in terms of corporate spend, we're seeing that the companies will spend $130 billion in 2017 to deliver systems of engagement via mobile devices, and this is fueling a $1 trillion information economy. So when you consider all the tools that you can use to create higher levels of engagement, many of these interaction methods leverage context. So this slide comes from a Forrester research report by one of my colleagues who's actually one of the co-authors of the book, and it highlights the ability to create context with new technologies. So, context is really the key to digital engagement because it enriches our digital experience. So consider the mobile devices that you carry around today. The device has sensors that know your location, direction, identity, and preferences. It has apps on it that constantly stream social feeds and real-time information from wearable devices and also from the environment. It can access corporate systems of record to enable you to be informed about the business. And whether it's a sales order that you're working on, or employee records, or business analytics. The device can also access public services like Google Maps and e-commerce platforms like PayPal. So the device delivers analytic information, some of which is predictive or informed by the wisdom of crowds. So the end result of all of these technologies coming together in the palm of your hand is a context-rich experience. It makes you situationally aware and able to respond to business opportunities. All of these capabilities are improving rapidly as the technology itself becomes more robust. So the context-enriched experience will improve as more and more devices in the physical world are connected to the digital world. Now, I want to shift from mobile to another major trend in the technology landscape, which is the growth of software as a service. So this data is from a recent survey that we did at Forrester and shows the ranking of application investment priorities. And I wrote about this in a recent report called Growth and Insight Drive Application Adoption Trends. So what's happening in business applications today is that companies are torn between having to spend large parts of their technology budget on renovating, upgrading, and rationalizing their existing transactional and operational systems. But at the same time, we see increasing levels of commitment to fund innovation related to business intelligence, SaaS, mobile, and social collaboration. So if you look at these trends over time, over the past 3 years, we see that the priorities are increasing more and more in the innovation areas of mobile, business intelligence, and SaaS. SaaS right now is the fastest growing priority for both IT and business decision makers in our survey of nearly 1,000 enterprise companies. We also see significant growth and investment in mobile applications to serve customers, employees, and partners. And I think it's particularly strong in the customer-facing area. The highest priority overall, however, is over this 3-year period, which is still gaining momentum, is business intelligence. As companies struggle to make sense of all the data that's coming from their systems of record, as well as all the data in the physical world and in the systems of engagement. Now, in our survey of application adoption, we asked companies how budget application expenditures were split between their traditional on-premises software and dedicated hosted software and software as a service. So what we see here is a clear pattern that shows technology management investment moving from the on-premise systems to SaaS, and also some to hosted environments. So in the past year, there was a decrease from 63% to 53% for budgeted on-premises software spending, and a corresponding increase in the SaaS spending, which you see on the left, where the public cloud or SaaS expenditures went from 15% to 23%. Now, to look at this trend over even a longer period of time. We trended it out over seven years. And I love the symmetry in this graph. What we see happening is that subscription software consumption, which is primarily the SaaS model, is growing while software license spending is shrinking at a very similar pace. So within the next 2 years or so, these lines are going to cross, and subscription software consumption will become the dominant delivery model for business applications. And this trend is also clear from the earnings reports of the major software vendors. Big software vendors like SAP and Oracle are seeing a significant decline in license revenues that they report in their financial disclosures. And they're trying to compensate for this by driving revenue into the subscription model and by offering more SaaS applications. Now, in fact, it's proven difficult for them to build true SaaS applications, and much of the revenue growth that we're seeing from these large vendors in SaaS is actually coming from acquisitions. And these are rather expensive acquisitions, too. All the large software vendors that I follow are making major changes in how they build and sell software so they don't get left behind. And also, I'm privileged to have the opportunity to work with a number of hot pure-play SaaS vendors, including Replicon, that are seeing fantastic growth rates as the consumption model moves to SaaS. In a number of areas, the SaaS adoption is quite mature, and this is particularly true for CRM systems like Salesforce.com and human resource management systems. Time and attendance systems, in particular, as a subset of the human resource systems segment, are beginning to move decisively to SaaS. And we've seen more adoption of SaaS in recruitment systems, performance management, and learning management systems, to the extent that nearly 100% of the deals happening now in these talent management areas are SaaS. Core HR systems and time and attendance systems are now starting to shift to SaaS. In fact, hundreds of companies have already replaced their core HR systems with SaaS products, or plan to do so within the next couple of years. It's interesting to note here that ERP and financial uptick, which you can see at the bottom of the graph, to SaaS versus the 2 prior years. So what's happening is that there's more supply increasing, and also a gain in confidence in moving not just some of the outlying systems, but actually their core business systems to the SaaS delivery model. So you might ask, well, what's the big driver behind SaaS? And we've been monitoring SaaS adoption for a number of years, and starting to really see a more sophisticated buyer. So historically, companies chose SaaS because of the pay-as-you-go cost model, or the belief that SaaS is inherently less expensive as a way to deploy software, which is true in some cases, but not necessarily all cases. So the cost and payment models are still important, but not the leading drivers of SaaS adoption. So SaaS adoption is really being driven less by cost considerations and more by agility and speed. One of the survey respondents in our survey said that SaaS provides more business agility, which means that the software itself is more flexible. And it means that it's easier to adapt to a changing business requirement. And this is a big change from the sort of hard-coded on-premise systems that took a long time to set up and customize and so forth. And SaaS systems are more flexible and easier to adapt because you're not getting into hard coding. So in the terms of speed, we're seeing that there's strong evidence that SaaS implementations are faster. And this is reflected in the fact that 72% of our survey respondents said implementation speed is a very important driver. And in fact, we're seeing evidence that SaaS implementations are 2 to 3 times faster than the equivalent on-premise types of implementations. Now, another very important driver is the updating model. And this is where new capabilities and features are delivered to you multiple times a year without the disruptive upgrades that are common with licensed software. So we saw in our survey that 69% saw the benefits from being able to get faster delivery of new features and functions in a SaaS model, essentially turning the job of patching and updating software over to the vendor itself. Because we've seen that IT has struggled with licensed software releases, in that they tend to stack up on the shelf, so to speak, and many companies are actually 3 to 5 years behind on updating their core business systems. Now, one of the things I advise my clients to be aware of is that all software vendors nowadays are claiming to have a SaaS offering, but some of them are really just reconstituting a licensed on-premise version of the same software. So this slide compares the two deployment models, hosted cloud versus SaaS. So if you look at this chart, what we see in a hosted environment, which some vendors may claim is cloud, but it's not really SaaS, is that each customer has a separate instance of the software, which means that there can be some variation in the versioning, and the updates don't necessarily happen at the same pace. In a true SaaS environment, all customers are on the same version of the software in what we call a multi-tenant environment. So the software of SaaS native solutions tends to be more advanced in that it's designed for mobile use and it's designed for real-time analytics and some more advanced capabilities that the older systems don't have. In terms of the hosting model, you have a shared application infrastructure across all the tenants, so they're all running in the same environment on the same infrastructure, which is very elastic, and that it can be increased based on demand. Whereas in a hosted model, you have dedicated resources, and you could run into some capacity issues. In terms of the payment model, the SaaS subscription model, I think, is distinguished by very simple per user per month or per employee per month type of model, which is very predictable and really pretty straightforward versus some of the more complicated payment models where you have upfront license fees and maintenance fees and so forth bundled into the arrangement. So, and just a couple more points is that when you upgrade these systems, the vendor determines the frequency, and that's something you have to get used to. But in the end, it's really less effort for the customers versus where the customer chooses when to upgrade. And when the customer chooses when to upgrade, what happens is that a lot of these upgrades are deferred. And then finally, in terms of customization, I mentioned earlier that the SaaS systems are inherently more flexible, and that is because you're doing configuration in the metadata layer. You're not actually touching the code of the software, whereas in some of the older systems, you actually have to get into the code layer to configure and actually customize the software. Okay, so let me just summarize here why SaaS deployments are growing rapidly. First of all, we feel that the business flexibility improves with software that is designed to be managed by business people, which means you have less dependence on internal IT to support these systems. The systems are designed to be upgraded regularly by the vendor, eliminating this classic upgrade lag and minimizing some of the obsolescence risks of systems that are not kept current. Third, we have a transparent cost of ownership model, which is, it's a pure subscription model. It's really quite simple. You pay a subscription rate based on the number of users or the size of the organization, and you don't have to budget for technical platform upgrades or maintenance fees. Another factor is that SaaS leverages modern integration technology in the cloud. One of the criticisms that we've heard about SaaS, which really doesn't hold water, is that it's more difficult to integrate with on-premise systems and with other systems that run in the cloud. But in fact, I think the integration technology has improved quite nicely, and these systems do leverage modern integration technology and, in fact, can be integrated real-time with other systems. And finally, these systems deliver business insight more quickly and provide greater context for business decisions. So this is true especially if you leverage the latest capabilities for mobile devices that we talked about, and also for big data technologies where the raw data is rapidly accessed in the main memory of the system rather than written out and aggregated on disk drives. All right, so let me move to the final piece here, which is to talk specifically about time and attendance systems and how they're evolving. So when we look at the time and attendance software category, there are really three critical business needs that are being served. The first one is time off, and time off is a cherished benefit for full-time employees because it's an earned entitlement for them to take vacation from work. And many companies manage time off using rudimentary systems and really don't even do a good job of it, even though there are some compliance implications, and in fact, accrued leave is a financial liability that has to be recognized by the company on their financial statements. So in addition to time off balances for various categories of leave, companies need timely information on attendance so that they can manage their resources on a daily basis. And they also need to track extended leaves of absence for compliance purposes. The second critical need is to pay hourly workers. So this can be an extraordinarily complicated process when you have some very complex overtime rules and collective bargaining agreements, to the extent that this cannot be done manually with any degree of accuracy or efficiency. So a time and attendance system can encapsulate time interpretation rules to the extent that raw data or raw time punches can be turned into calculated gross pay that is then fed into the payroll system. So this is a critical business need for companies that have a lot of hourly workers, which is common in the retail sector, the manufacturing sector, hospitality, and a number of other industries. The third critical need is to capture time data for the purposes of billing and costing. Professional services companies, for example, track time work so that they can generate revenue. This reported time is work in process inventory that is billed to clients. On the costing side, there are some companies such as defense contractors that need to record time for the purposes of calculating project costs, which are then used in generating revenue or justifying fixed bid contracts. Now, Replicon is one of the few vendors that I've seen with an integrated software capability that addresses all three of these business needs: time off, hourly pay, and project time and billing. Now, this slide comes from a very recent report that I authored to document the maturity and value of 18 different categories of HR software. And the category we're showing here is workforce management, which is roughly equivalent to time and attendance, but it also includes scheduling systems. So the definition and usage scenario at the top of the chart is basically what I just went through in terms of the business function and usage scenarios. So I want to focus really on the value proposition here of these applications. Down the bottom of the chart. So the business value of time and attendance is very high because it's proven to minimize fraud, improve regulatory compliance, optimize labor resource utilization, standardize pay practices, and potentially reduce overtime costs. And of course, it also improves process efficiency to a great degree because tracking time is very difficult to do manually at any kind of scale. Although the category is quite mature, it's also evolving. It's evolving to SaaS and mobile, as we talked about, and which makes it very viable over the long term. So we rate the category as highly successful based on its return on investment. And also we expect that the value proposition will continue to improve with mobile and SaaS deployments. Okay, so let me conclude here with a few key recommendations. First of all, I recommend that you focus on the theme of employee engagement and use systems that are responsive to workforce needs to create an engaging user experience, which includes mobile, use of mobile devices and increasing utilization of the solution so that it improves the accuracy and timeliness of the information that's gathered. Also use time applications to innovate processes based on real-time feeds and real-world context. So the power of these mobile devices should not be underestimated because it allows continuous collection of time data rather than batching or periodic submissions of time data, and also allows the mobile device to add context to the transactions, such as the location of where the worker is submitting the time from. Leveraging a SaaS vendor is another recommendation here because of the continuous updating model and also the ability to incorporate advanced technologies seamlessly into the application. So one of the ways that SaaS vendors are incorporating mobile is to use a concept called responsive design, which means that the user interface adjusts to the size of the palette, whether it's a smartphone, tablet, or desktop device. And also using a mobile-first concept, that is where you design the application so that it works on touch as well as on a desktop-type computer with a mouse. Finally, the last point is to embed analytics in your systems to gain real-time insights into your business and into the performance of the workforce. So with that, I'll now turn it over to Jose for his portion.
Great. Thank you, Paul, for a great presentation, giving us some very provocative things to consider. At this point, what I'd like to do is introduce our second speaker today, Jose Gaona. Jose is a 25-year veteran in the automated time and attendance industry, and he's a recognized expert in the field. He is the VP of Product Strategy for Replicon. And as VP of Product Strategy, he's leveraging his expertise across the organization to guide Replicon's product direction and make it an innovation leader in the market. So Jose, please take it away.
Thank you, Armando. And Paul, thanks again for your insight. Perfect for what we're going to talk about here. And good day to everyone. Replicon is the leader in time tracking applications. We have millions of users all around the world with a 95% customer retention. A few of our customers you can see on this slide from Yelp, Yahoo, and et cetera. We just wanted to kind of cover we have large and small customers as well. Here at Replicon, we're looking at re-engineering how businesses should look at time. Time is an asset. Just look at all the hours employees are working in a given year. Just look at a company with 1,000 employees. Over 20 million in hours are available. Companies already deploy a variety of systems to manage their assets. For instance, for their cash and hard assets like inventory, companies use ERP systems to help keep track of them. For managing people, companies use HCM systems, human capital management systems. For project management, software is used to manage work. But what about time? Companies usually don't have enterprise-wide systems to systematically keep track of how employees manage their time. We here at Replicon believe that time needs to be captured and dealt with immediately, or it's gone forever. Time is perishable. Since time is perishable, the only way to manage time is in the now. Today's technologies allow us to live in the now. Mobile devices have opened the door to all possibilities of managing in the now. For example, today, right now, during this session, you may have your mobile device in hand to either listen to this session, check your email, Facebook, or even send for a car. Yes, we all can't get enough of our mobile devices. Well, let me explain how you can now manage time in the now. Other systems in the market today are just basically duplicating their desktop solutions onto the mobile devices. It's just an extension of their desktop application. Replicon is looking into the future and has expanded the use of mobile devices to go above and beyond the standard offering. We have taken the mobile devices and built a system to do all the work for you. Let me try to paint a picture using 3 common user stories that you'll be very familiar with and how we have lifted the burden from your day-to-day activities to make your life easier. And yes, make your job mission possible. And you can also have a relaxing cup of coffee. Let's begin with managing attendance in the now. Susan manages a 150-employee call center. Very competitive industry, and high level of customer service is essential. Adequate staffing is critical to meet customer SLAs and ensure customer satisfaction. However, you can always expect the unexpected. For a variety of reasons, employees are sometimes not able to cover their shifts. But by managing in the now, Susan is able to address any challenge of the day proactively to avoid a total disaster. First, she's notified by an alert that gives her an opportunity to take proactive steps. Susan sees that 4 people will miss their shift. 2 called in sick, and the other 2 are running very late. No problem. Susan can quickly look at the other available employees that could take these shifts. She sends out a broadcast to all the employees, or she can decide to only select a few. Employees are sorted by cost and she can also view their proximity to the office. In this case, Jesse receives the request for shift coverage. Jesse can get details about the shift. He's nearby, and it seems like a good opportunity to make some extra money this week. And 3 of the 4 shifts have already been snatched, so he quickly accepts. Susan receives confirmation that Jesse will be taking the last of the shifts. And what I'd like for you to please take note here is that Susan did not have to go to a desktop system to run reports, to make several calls, to see who was available, and the painstaking time of waiting to receive callbacks to see who can cover those shifts. The system did all the work. She simply made simple decisions and actions to fill her shifts. Job done. Within minutes, she's back to doing what she does best and having a cup of coffee. For the next use case, let's look at managing overtime. Typically, people think of overtime based on hourly employees as a challenge. But we here at Replicon have seen some of our customers who manage knowledge workforces who also struggle with controlling overtime. Here is one scenario. Mark is a client manager for a leading IT consulting company. This IT consulting company provides services to customers on-site. Projects are fixed bid contracts, so staying within the budget, project cost is critical to ensure service margins. In this case, Mark is managing a high-profile project for Acme and needs to stay within the $120K budget. Mark needs to understand and make decisions on any events that impact total cost. Unforeseen events and scope creep constantly threaten to create project cost overruns. In the traditional world, a client manager would need to constantly check their desktop to run reports in order to find possible problem areas. It's a constant research, calling people, trying to understand where they're at. But when managing in the now and with the mobile devices, the client manager can proactively manage events as they unfold, again, in the now. In this case, Mark sees that there is 3 requests for overtime from 3 people that could impact this project. Looks like Acme is requesting some out-of-scope work. Scope creep, we've all heard that word. This is common in Mark, and Mark often tries to accommodate the customer. Mark wants to keep his customers happy and wants to avoid the uncomfortable discussion of needing to ask for more money. He needs to keep within the project budget and complete the project. Looks like requests are coming from Brandon, John, and Sarah, who need to work overtime to meet their requests. Mark can see his project budget and his forecast, cost based on current run rate before the overtime is approved. Mark can quickly see the impact that approving Brandon's overtime would have on the total package cost. He thinks, still under budget. Let's see what effect the budget would have if Mark approves all 3. Perfect. Mark sees he's still under budget and decides to approve all requests to keep the customer happy and still stay within his budget. As these requests are approved, employees who submitted the request are notified. Once again, the system provided all the alerts and the budget without the user having ever to go to their desktop and searching and running reports in order to make the right decisions. Everything is presented to the user in the now. As our final and most important use case is that of the dreaded payroll processing day. Payroll managers are up to their ears in all kinds of requests during that time period, from managers to supervisors and employees all requesting different information and reports, questions being asked, are timesheets completed? Are vacation days approved? Do they have the vacation time available? Did we pay overtime? Are timesheets approved? And the list goes on and on. Karen, the payroll manager, is on the front lines of making sure payroll runs without any snags. It's 9 a.m. on Monday morning, and payroll needs to run by noon. All too often, payroll exceptions rear their ugly heads. Not a problem. Karen, the payroll manager, knows that when managing payroll in the now, the system has this under control and is keeping her in the loop. First, she sees a notification that alerts her that pending items are required before she can run payroll. Karen sees the items that require attention. She can also see that the system has already notified the offenders automatically, so she doesn't need to. There are still 3 hours before payroll is due, and so she's going to wait and let the system manage her employees. A few hours have passed, and oh, interesting, another alert. Karen taps on the notification and can see that the managers have already approved their pending timesheets. Great. That took care of itself. The only remaining item is one timesheet that was not submitted. And yes, it's our problem child, Anna. Karen could send a final notification to Anna, but in this case, Karen decides to just submit for payroll. Karen can see the total amount of payroll run as well as the total hours. She simply selects the run payroll, and now she's completed her task. The only way to manage time, again, is in the now, as it happens, as it unfolds. And here at Replicon, we would like to offer you that capability.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jose, for a great presentation. At this point, what we'd like to do is turn over to address any questions that are out there from our audience today. So please, at this point, if you haven't already done so, feel free to type in your questions in the question text box located on the right-hand side of the Q&A panel in the GoToMeeting application. So please go ahead and type in your questions now. I'll be going through those and then sending these questions off here to Paul and to Jose to be able to respond to any of your inquiries. So I have a question here from Michelle. How do you convince your employer that this is a necessity? Addressed by both.
Well, yeah, I think this is Paul. So I think it's should be clear that it's a necessity to have better control, better compliance, and better automation of your time systems, and also to be able to engage your people using the devices that they want to use, rather than some kind of complex corporate screen that they have to type data into. So I think the business necessity should be clear, but it should be articulated in terms of things like cost savings, business value, and compliance.
You hit it right on the head.
Okay, great. Please continue to submit your questions. We have a good stream going here. Next question is by Julian. How many pay rates can Replicon include? And we have various ways of compensating employees for travel out in the field. Can Replicon track these?
Yes, we can. We have we can definitely track multiple pay rates, and we can also address remote employees or people who travel. Definitely.
Great. Another question here from Rebecca. We have a mobile workforce and would like to be able to track which state the employee is working in so we can tax accordingly. Can Replicon's software accommodate this?
Absolutely. We actually have customers today that need that requirement, and we're able to accommodate them.
Okay, great. And please continue to submit your questions if any of you have questions out there. The next question is from Becky. Is Replicon compatible with ADP?
Absolutely. We are compatible with all payroll systems out there today. We can build an interface as well if it's something that we haven't come across in the past. But definitely with ADP.
Great. The next question is, does Replicon have global solutions? Can Replicon be implemented in APAC and integrate with ADP, Streamline?
Yes, today we actually have customers globally. And yes, we have interfaced with ADP as well in those scenarios.
Okay, great. See, we have another similar question here. Is Replicon compatible with CYMA software? Same answer we
Yes, absolutely, exactly.
I see that you offer tracking for project costing. Is there a limit to the number of projects per employee?
No, there is not a limit.
Okay. Question here for, looks like business appropriate for Paul. What do you think are the most important characteristics to consider when choosing a time and attendance system?
Okay, so there's several factors that to consider. First of all, take a look at the company. Is the company is it growing? Does it have a vision? Is it innovative? And is it well funded? From a financial viability standpoint. Second thing is look at how well the solution meets your business need. So part of the considerations would be, let's say, the size of the workforce. Whether it's predominantly an hourly workforce or a project-based workforce, and how global it is in scale, and find a match where the company can meet these kinds of complexities and business needs. And the third factor, I think, is to look at innovation. And innovation is really the technical side of it. It's the software architecture. Is the software inherently flexible to the extent that it can be configured by business people without a whole lot of IT support? Another thing is, is it delivered via a subscription or SaaS model where the upgrades happen non-disruptively and with a high level of frequency? And third, is it addressing innovation like mobile, where you can take advantage of the capabilities to create a system of engagement and communicate with your workforce?
Great, thank you, Paul. And the next question from Ann, does the client have a dedicated support person during implementation? How about after, as we use the product? I'm assuming she refers the client to Replicon.
Sure. Yes, we can offer a dedicated implementation or support person during that process, but we do have a staff that manage multiple accounts. It's a small amount so that they can definitely work through all the implementation scenarios, but we can also offer the service of a dedicated implementation person. As far as after the fact, we have a great service center here. It's 24/7, and you will be assigned a service person to support you throughout your time with Replicon.
The next question is, how many fields for job costing? This is from Becky. I'm assuming, how many do we support? Custom fields, I believe, in tracking of job information.
Yeah, we definitely have job fields or job.
How many fields for?
How many fields for job costing? We have multiple fields in the system for job costing. I think I just need to understand your question a little better. That can be a complicated question. It just depends. But we do handle job costing.
Many fields, and can we create also additional ones per user?
Yes, we can.
Do employers using the system typically distribute standardized smartphones to all users? How do you overcome, not all my employees have iPhones or the like?
Right, and it depends on the business themselves. Businesses are more and more starting to assign business phones, smartphones to their employees. But again, it just depends on your business and how you practice.
Yeah, what we're seeing, from the Forrester standpoint, is that a lot of companies have a bring-your-own-device strategy, which means that the mobile applications should run on multiple devices. And the way that's accomplished is using technology called HTML5, where the apps are written not necessarily in the native coding language of Apple or Android, but they're written in a way that it can interact with a mobile browser really on any device, whether it's a Windows device or a BlackBerry browser, or of course, Apple and Android being the most popular platforms.
Okay, thank you. Are you able to automatically add the 1 hour meal premium pay to the timesheet if the employee does not take their meal break on time in California?
I was just going to say, you must be a California business. Yes, we do.
Is there a handout? Yes, there are some questions have been here about whether we'll be providing a handout. We will be providing one, and we'll have the contact information of people available after this if you want to ask more questions. Question from Michelle, I'm exploring getting our company to switch and would like to discuss. Oh, sorry, that's not a question, it's more of a comment.
Okay.
So to piggyback off a previous question, we have over 1,000 on the job fields. We have over 1,000 customers, and we could have hundreds of jobs we are working on per customer in any given week. Will Replicon be able to track this?
Yes, we can definitely. We can track it by customer, by job, as well as give you the opportunity to use our data to build the customer as well.
If for employees clocking in out via mobile phone, if they are in a remote location that does not have cell service, will the app hold the punch until they can connect?
Yes, it does retain the information when offline.
Let's see. Please continue to submit your questions if you have any more. I'm going down the list now. Next question is the cloud a good solution for large global companies?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think it's ideal for large global companies because the networks work globally, and from a software support standpoint, it's a lot easier to administer a system that's cloud-based than to have specific locations and time constraints that you're dealing with in terms of administering on-premise software. So a lot of global companies are deploying cloud-based solutions so that they can, reach out into these, locations that are in various countries across the world. But of course, you want to look at some of the capabilities to support some of the local requirements, which may require you to run the app in a native language or to support some specific localizations. And some relatively rare cases, some countries may require you to have some on-premise or some in-country, rather, data centers. But there are ways to get around that. So I would say, in general, cloud systems are, I think, better suited for global deployments than the on-premise equivalents.
Okay, great. And then the next question is this product currently in the market?
If you're referring to the mobile product, it is currently in development, and we're actually looking for beta clients. So if you're interested in participating in that, we would love to have your name and become part of the team. Just give us a call.
The next question is, does Replicon have a time clock solution also?
Yes, we do. Our app, we have a very unique, this is one thing that makes us very unique in the marketplace. We offer an app that would go on a tablet, whether it's an iOS or an Android device, and we download our app, and that becomes your time and attendance or your time clock. You would be able to swipe in by showing a barcode, and then it would take your picture and would send the punches to the system. So yes.
What about time off requests and balances? Does the mobile app support that too?
Absolutely.
Great. And I think I've got to the questions that have been submitted. If there are any more, please submit them now. Otherwise, we've come to the conclusion. We had great engagement and discussion. Thank you very much, all of you, for submitting your questions. At this point, I'd like to thank our presenters today for doing a great job of giving us a very informative and provocative presentation. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jose. And thank you to everyone who joined us today to listen in, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar. Have a great day.